Hola, hola. This is Dmitry Mitya Orlov from the Biowell company. I'm Master of Sciences in Technical Physics. And not so long ago, Dr. Nato Pignataro has forwarded me an inquiry to give a small lecture about fields and biofield, energy field, and just very general. So, and it's the first time I'm reading this lecture specifically on this topic. So I had to get all the knowledge from different spheres that I knew into one presentation. So please don't judge me hard. And this will be my first try. But I want to tell you that it's a really interesting topic in QuantumBio. The topics that are covered are really, really interesting. And maybe this lecture about the terminology, the definition, some exact numbers will make it easier, your education and understanding of different therapies and different devices that can be used. As I know, Dr. Nato Pignataro will also be giving a big lecture about biowell and GDV technology, about this fact of emission of the light uh, from the fingers. But well, he will tell you the truth. I hope that it's not the light that is being emitted from the fingers, it's the electrons that we extract from the fingers that then create the air discharge. But well, I will leave this topic to Nato, and we will talk about fields, biofields, and energy fields, and we'll try to understand what's the difference there, what kind of fields and emissions do we emit as human beings, and what kind of emissions are affecting us on a daily basis. Let's go. So you can see my contact details on this slide. If you will have some questions later on, don't worry. You can write to me, and even in Portuguese, tudo bem. So if they, with the current technologies and AIs, etc., it's possible to translate all these languages and communicate easily. So don't hesitate to write me if you will have some questions. So let's go. First disclaimer that I want to tell you is that this is not the information that I have just revealed myself during my research or some experiments, etc. Well, I will share some of my experiments that I have made in order to prove the theories that are already existing in the world. So the main aim of this lecture is to systematize, structurize the existing information on this topic. So just to make it convenient to understand. It's like on this picture that you see on the screen, when you have all the pieces of the puzzle, you know all of them, one by one, you know all of them. But how to put them into connection and create a holistic picture, it's a different story. So my best practice in this life is to systematize knowledge. So that's what I will do during this lecture. We'll try to build a more or less congruent and coherent picture on this topic of biofields. Let's go. Well, most of the information that is being shared during the lectures can be really put into very small number of sentences. No need, it's very small amount of useful information in terms of the essence of it. But the problem in education is that if I will just tell you the fact, yeah, it's going to be a true fact, but I will just tell you without explaining why it is like that. I will just tell you what, without explaining why. What will happen in your brain? This new fact will get into your brain and into your mind, and it will start processing there. And of course, as long as we have some view of life, some picture of life, and if this new fact doesn't fit completely into your picture, existing ones, after some time, the existing knowledge will delete this fact just because it doesn't correlate with the rest of the knowledge. So in order for a new bit of information to get completely integrated into your mindset, into your consciousness, you have to also provide information to your brain why it is like that, to build more connections between this fact and other things in the world so that it will be a more coherent picture. Then your brain will be easier understanding this information and accepting it easier too. And the probability that it will be deleted from your picture of life, it becomes minimum. So that's why we need to learn not only the facts, but also we need to understand why it is like that, why it works like that. So, well, we will try to answer both questions during this lecture, what and why. So let's go. Of course, we have to start from the boring things, like definitions. So the definition of emission oscillation, of course, most of you have heard about Nikola Tesla, and he's saying that if you want to really understand the world, you need to think in terms of energy and oscillation. So nothing is still. There's nothing still. Everything is moving. So as long as everything is moving, it means that everything is oscillating. Yeah, maybe some oscillations are not harmonic, so not like a wave shown on this picture. So it may be chaotic emission, but still it is emission because everything is moving. We will talk about the role of this chaotic or non-chaotic emission and such harmonic, absolutely ideal waves, and if they're really useful or not, what kind of effect they can bring us. But for now, we just remind ourselves that everything is oscillating. So when we talk about us, about anything that affects us, it's about oscillation frequencies, wavelengths, etc. Next thing, what is field? Field is just a specific space, region or space, in which a given effect exists. So if the electromagnetic field exists in this specific space, then this can be called electromagnetic field. If radioactivity exists there or acoustic oscillations exist there, then this is acoustic field or radioactive field. That's simple. So that's nothing new, but well, just be specific so that the field is directly connected with the oscillations that are existing in a specific space. So when we talk about human being and different emissions that it can emit, we need to understand one thing, that there is lots of information inside of us, and lots of different emissions, different fluctuations, and on the different frequencies. But in order to do some measurements, in order to understand what's going on with the person, you don't need to open the body in order to really understand what's going on. It's like a nuclear station where, well, it's quite dangerous to go inside into a nuclear reactor and check what's going on there. Instead of going inside, you have a terminal point where you can check the current condition of these nuclear station, how the process is going on there. So, and everything, if by looking at the parameters that this terminal shows you, you can understand if something has to be corrected or not. Same story about human beings. Thanks to the designers of our bodies, there are terminal points. There are different possibilities to analyze the inner world of the human being without getting inside, like with the nuclear station. So different fields and emissions are one of the factors, that phenomena that can be used in order to understand what's going on inside. Well, maybe you already know about the acupuncture points and different systems that exist in this world, and there are many systems on acupuncture points. In Tibet, India, China, Japan, South Korea, New German, etc. There are many, many different systems, and each one says a little bit different things about this position of the acupuncture points on different parts of the body. But the essence is that these acupuncture points are like terminals through which you can read the information about what's going on inside. So today we will speak mostly about emissions, not the acupuncture points. But this interesting fact is that emissions are really helpful for us and for the therapists, for the doctors, for people themselves, in order to understand what's going on inside without opening the body. So now, definition of the biofield, because an energy field, because there are many speculations on this topic and many inappropriate, I would say, definition of this term. So biofield is simply field of biological object. That's it. Now, no esoterics there. So that's just all types of fields that biological object emits. That's it. Nothing else. No special unknown things that are you cannot define and you cannot really understand where it is from. It's just emission from any biological object. We are not an exception from the rule. Human beings, cats, dogs, different animals, and plants are also having almost the same types of emissions. So in terms of the energy field, well, it's again just a beautiful term that people like to use, but in fact, it's again same thing. It's a field of all types of emissions, because emissions are to transfer something. So the energy to fulfill some work. So electromagnetic energy, acoustic energy, or I don't know, magnetic energy. Yeah. So same story, absolutely same thing. Nothing special about that. It is some extraterrestrial stuff about us. No, it's the same, a combination of all types of emissions and fields that a human body has. So you can call it biofield or energy field. It's same story. Well, the picture that you see on the screen now, it is taken from the Biowell software, and it's just the way people think that our field looks like. Well, even though that in Biowell is just a computerized special, I would say, restructurization of the emission taken from 10 fingers, and the figure of the man is just for convenience entered in the middle, just for beauty and marketing. So, but anyway, most of the people think that there is some kind of like cocoon around our bodies. So we will talk about what kind of nature of this kind of field around us can be and what it can signify. So a small reference about energy. So I know people are very happy to use the term energy and like quantum energy or something, and I add some words there. So, but in fact, energy is just a transport, mean of transportation. So its ability to fulfill some work, right? So it can transfer from one place to another with some mean, like with the use of electrons, with the use of acoustic waves, so mechanical oscillations, through the use of radioactivity, radioactive particles, etc. Or energy can be used to also transfer, as long as it already transfers something with some use of some particles, for example. It can also transfer and transport information. We will talk about information function a little bit later. So energy is just transport. Different ways like electromagnetic, magnetic, acoustic, radioactive. Nothing special about this energy. Maybe there are some other types, like, okay, gravitational waves that are now being discovered and researched a lot worldwide. So maybe there are some other types of emissions that we are not yet aware of and that exist in this universe, and that modern science is just not enough developed to understand. But it's still, again, just transportation of something from one place to another. So let's come back to human beings and summarize all types of fields that we have around us. So what do we emit? So the electromagnetic waves we emit because there are organs that have their own electromagnetic field, like emission, like brain, heart, or some other organs or systems in the body. So, but mainly with the use of electromagnetic field, the brain and heart are being analyzed mostly. Electrostatic, yeah, again, the static electric charge and electricity that are being accumulated on mostly on the surface of the skin. Magnetic emission, we also have it. Acoustic, of course, well, when I speak, it's acoustic emission. Also, because I breathe and because the heart beats, there is also acoustic emission, just mechanical oscillation of these organs also create some acoustic field around me. Radioactive, well, not many people know, but we are also radioactive. We emit radioactive particles non-stop. So, well, yeah, we are not so heavily radioactive, so, but we do not damage each other by being too close to each other, but still there is small amount of radioactivity that's also being emitted from our bodies. Chemical emission, of course, through the pores, through the breath, Also, we are emitting lots of chemicals, and we create some kind of chemical field around us that is reflecting our inner state, right? So depending on what's going on inside, the chemical composition of the sweat, for example, will be altered. Heat, in terms of non-electromagnetic heat, that is also being emitted by a human body. It's just the fluctuation, oscillation of the atoms and molecules. So that can be by direct transfer, and collisions with the air molecules can be transferred around us. So we can also heat the surrounding air. Well, might be some other types of emissions, but modern science is not yet aware of. Maybe there's something else. So we should always keep our minds open and be ready to new discoveries. In order to understand better the concept about human being, I would like to share with you an interesting concept based on Ayurveda. Well, I call it here human hardware and software, so that just to understand that we consist of two parts. And of course, the emission of both parts should exist. Simply, we know a lot about emissions of the hardware level, but we don't know a lot about software level emissions. So, but let's go. This concept of Ayurvedic ones is talking about how the human body works and how the problems appear in the body. So, well, we will start from the last stage of this of these problems creation in the body, and the sixth level is the pathological level. It's the time when the illness is already there, established, and you already feel bad. Sorry. So, of course, before the pathology, usually we have some symptoms that are not so acute, not so painful. So that's why in many cases we can stay with them for a very long time and finally get the pathology, right? But well, in essence, these symptoms are already the stage at which you can do something, because you already feel discomfort or some disease somewhere. What is before symptoms? Well, according to Ayurvedic concept, it's accumulation of garbage, toxins in the body. So wherever there is too much of these garbage or toxins, then it will lead to specific symptoms, and then it, after some time, can lead to a pathological state. So this is all hardware, right? These are really material things that are happening in the body. But again, if we look into a more subtle level, so level number 3, it's about metabolism, or some people that don't like this word, they maybe like more energy flows, but it's the same story. It's some kind of different chemical and physical processes running in our body that, if they are not fulfilled correctly or not in the correct time, they will lead to creation of toxins, this garbage that we create in our life just by being alive. So accumulation of the toxins happens only when the outgoing, the excretion of the toxins is slower than creation of them. So there are always two approaches that you can apply in this. You can either intensify the detoxification or minimize the creation of toxins, right? About metabolism, this is already more subtle level, right? But it's still material. This is still some kind of exchange processes going on in the body that creates these different useful things for our bodies, for our lives, and also useless, these kind of residuals, toxins. These three levels are hardware level, directly connected with the body. And we can work on this level, on all of these four levels, in order to change something that's going on in the body. But if we will not pay attention to the upper levels, the problems will return back, because the reason of these metabolic imbalances, for example, are not on the same level as metabolism. It's on the upper level. Why do we get metabolic imbalances? Is due to the lifestyle. Well, if we talk about these problems that can be created on a hardware level due to the lifestyle, well, there are main five spheres of life that are highly affecting our energy state and metabolic activity. These are mindset level, like psychology. This is nutrition. This is physical activity. This is regime of the day, the sleeping regime most of all. And the fifth is the external environment. So these aspects of the life are then creating some problems on the third level, on metabolic level, that will lead to the accumulation of toxins, symptoms, and pathology, etc. So, but why do we live some specific lifestyle? Why do we have some specific habits in our life? They are not random, right? So they're taken from somewhere. And this is level number one, the mindset. So this is the constitution according to which you live, according to which you do everything in your life on all levels. It doesn't matter if it's just relationships or it's the food that you eat or the water that you drink. All of these things are dependent on your mindset, conscious or subconscious, it doesn't matter, all together. So simply the conscious one is the one that you can control more or less and edit. The subconscious is the one that is done fulfilled automatically in our organism. But well, I like to dig deeper, and whenever there's something is created and something exists, it means there is a creator, right? Well, it makes sense. Nothing cannot appear from nothing. It contradicts the law of preservation of energy, right? So if there is a mindset, so there is a set of rules, it means that someone has written them. So there is some author, right, of your mindset. Well, depending on your education, your belief system, etc., you can call it in different ways. Some people will call it just consciousness. Some people can call it soul. For me, it doesn't matter. It's same story. It's the author of your mindset. Yeah, the developer, the one who controls the consciousness, the ones who can edit the subconscious part of you. So the top three levels are the software levels, the ones that are the software level is more subtle, of course, and modern science doesn't know much about different types of emissions that can exist on this software level. We know a lot about hardware level, but not so much about software level. So about the mindset and author, well, of course, the way we live and the problems with the body, with the emissions that we have, depends on two things. When we operate this body, it's the same like operating system like Windows or Macintosh are operating the hardware of the laptop or computer. So it's the same story. Some software, we can call it soul, okay, operates the hardware, the body. So it means that we consist of two parts. And in every moment in time in our life, there is a competition, and sometimes there is a contradiction between the DNA and the soul. So sometimes, because DNA is the summary of all the experience from previous generations of this physical body, from mother, father, grandparents, great grandparents, great etc., right? So this is the information accumulated through the generations inbuilt into this body, whilst the soul has nothing to do with this exact body and has nothing to do with the information from DNA. So it is an operating system that is being installed on this body. So in some cases, you need, in order to understand on which level the problem is, you need to understand, is it a hardware or software level? And in some cases, you do something automatically due to DNA, for example, habits inbuilt from previous generations, and then you understand that, oh, you shouldn't have been doing it. It's better to, you know, apologize, etc., etc. So it's just a small reference on understanding the human being better, because of course, the course that you are passing now, the main objective is to better understand the human being in order to diagnose better and treat better. You cannot do that without proper understanding of how it is being made. Just sharing this insight. So let's go to a very hard science now. Well, it was a beautiful story with the beautiful pictures. Now we will have to return back to definitions and terms and different numbers. So things that modern science knows pretty well: the human hardware emissions. And we will talk about it in terms of frequencies and wavelengths, so that you know the exact numbers. So our body emits the heat, infrared. It's electromagnetic spectrum, infrared part. In terms of frequency, it's around 30 terahertz. In terms of wavelength, it's around 10 micrometers. Yeah, of course, the band is wider, but this is the middle of it. And just for you to understand that we ourselves emit at terahertz range. But almost all of this emission is being absorbed, this infrared emission, by the cells of our body. So in fact, the one that we can sense outside of the body is only the emission that is coming from very thin layer, only 1 millimeter, the top layer of the skin. And it's directly connected with the capillary blood flow. So that's why by measuring in this range, the micrometers range, you can understand what's going on with the superficial blood circulation of capillary vessels. But still, even this kind of emission is very intensive. So it is nearly 10 milliwatts from square centimeter. So from the surface of all the body, we emit nearly 100 watts. of energy. So it's like a 100-watt bulb. It hits a lot, right? So, well, when there are many people in a small room, well, you can feel the hit. So this is pretty basic. Of course, we all we can sense the heat, how hot or cold some parts of the body. Nothing outstanding here, nothing special. We all know about this. We live with this. We are used to measure our temperature constantly when we get ill. Another type of heat that is also existing in us is radio wave heat, radio heat. It is from 3 to 300 gigahertz, and the wavelength is from 1 to 100 millimeter. And unfortunately, it's super weak, and in comparison with the previous one, but it goes from a deeper layers of our body. It's approximately 1 centimeter deep. So, and it is connected with the bioenergetics, with the metabolic activity of brain, heart, organs, and muscles. So, but again, well, please remember these ranges, because when we will talk about external emissions, you will have to remember these emissions too, because these are the emissions that we naturally emit, up to 300 gigahertz. Next, of course, there is acoustic heat. So it's just the mechanical oscillation of the molecules. So heat movement of molecules. It's directly connected with the work of the inner organs and muscles. What's good about this acoustic heat, it's from 1 to 10 megahertz, is that in this range, our body is almost transparent. It means that we can get this emission even through the deep parts of the body. So in comparison with the the first one type of emission we were talking about, the infrared ones that is being absorbed by the neighboring cells. This one is having almost no interference, and that's why it's easy to detect it outside. Next one is the electric potential of the skin, the surface one. Well, just by movement and interaction with the air, we accumulate static charge, because our top layer of the skin is almost dielectric, so it can lead to this surface electric potential accumulation, and thanks to this electric potential of the skin, by measuring the distribution of this electric potential on the surface, we can understand what's going on inside too, because different, I would say, living fluctuations of different organs lead to change of the electric potential on the surface through the interaction, intercellular interaction. But the problem with this type of emission is that the different parts and different materials in our body conduct this electricity different way. So, for example, muscles conduct electricity much better than fat. So that's why, depending on the constitution of the person, you can or you can't do some kind of measurement of this electric potential, or the electric potential of the surface will not be so representative in terms of telling us what's going on inside. So that's why picture is not so acute, not so detailed. But these electromagnetic fields that are created by our organs, cells, and systems in our body also create magnetic fields. What's good about magnetic field is that our body is completely transparent in for magnetic fields. So it's almost easily going outside, you can easily detect them, but the problem is that our personal magnetic field is many times weaker than actual magnetic field of the planet Earth in which we live. So it means that in order to really get and measure the magnetic field of the person itself, you have to put the person into a special camera where all other magnetic fields are isolated. Well, we know about such devices that are special, like Faraday cage, etc., that are making it possible to analyze what's going on inside the body without interference with the external fields. But, well, we also know, it's just a small remark, that we need this connection with the external fields, and like the birds flying, orienting their path on the magnetic field of the Earth, same, we also need this magnetic field. So actually, without these kind of special cages and special cameras, well, unfortunately, magnetic fields are not so useful for us as therapists. Okay, let's go next. Triboelectric charge. It's the charge that accumulates on the surface of the skin just because your clothes are touching it, your hair on the skin, and the skin itself. So it accumulates on the surface. So again, as we have talked about the electric potential that is collected not only on the surface but also inside, this one is only the surface charge, so it's static charge. But the distribution of the static charge on our surface of our body can also tell us about the breathing cycles, the heart beating, the blood vessels pulsation, microtremor of muscles, etc. Different processes that are also leading to small movement of our skin and the surface of it, and also leads to redistribution of the static charge because of this electric interaction between the inner electricity and this surface electricity. So by analyzing the distribution of the surface electric charge, you can also do some measurements and understand what's going on inside the body. Next, acoustic waves. Well, yeah, we do speak, we do emit different sounds, and also just because we constantly breathe nonstop until we are dead, or the heartbeat. So these two cycles are the most active emitters of the acoustic waves, well, when we're silent. But of course, there are oscillations of the inner organs and bones and muscles, etc. But most of these oscillations are being absorbed by the body itself. Only the breathing and the heartbeat are strong enough in order to be detected easily outside. The oscillations of inner organs are really hard to be detected because they are being absorbed, because they're inside. You remember we were talking about nuclear factory, right? That, yeah, there are emissions that are existing. Of course, each organ is living. So, and depending on its size, it emits specific waves because it also conducts blood through itself. It also produces some chemicals and sends them to the blood flow, etc. So it means that there is some kind of even acoustic oscillation, combination of acoustic waves in every organ. But unfortunately, because the surroundings are humid, lots of water there, they absorb this very good. So from outside, breathing and heartbeat can be detected mostly. Then this part is not so widely known by people, but again, it's not a top secret anymore. In the previous century, it was found that every living being, it's not only human beings, don't think that we are so special, no, we're just part of the nature, and leaves, plants of the plants, and cats and dogs and different animals, they also emit these biophotons, the light that goes from a biological object. And the most interesting part of it, about these biophotons, is that they are being emitted in the visible part of the spectrum. Well, just showing to you the numbers. So it's in terms of frequencies, it's around 4 to around 800 terahertz. In terms of nanometers of the wavelength, it's 740 to 380. But again, these things are really, really super subtle. There are few photons coming from the surface of the body per square centimeter. Few of them, really few. That's why you cannot photograph it. Only if you put a person in an absolutely black cameras. There is a university institute in Germany that is devoted to biophotonics, and they built a special black camera that was able to detect this emission in these absolute black cameras from the human being. But they have found that it's ultra weak. So of course you cannot see with the eye these unique photons going out per second, you know, like individual one photon. No. But the interesting thing is that, this topic was a topic of my bachelor's degree in university, that this kind of light is coherent. It means it is not being emitted randomly and chaotically. It is like laser, a coherent light. So it means there is some kind of, you know, command center that is coordinating the emission of this light from our bodies. So coherent means coordinated. So like 1, 2, 3, go, and all the photons fly from the whole surface of the skin. That's very, very unusual thing, and modern science doesn't know exactly why it is like that and what for. But that just proves us that we are very coherent beings. Everything is very well coordinated in the way our body works, even though in some cases we don't know why it is made like that. And also about biophotons is that we don't know what is the source. There are different theories about source of these biophotons. One of the theories by Russian scientist Pyotr Garyaev is that the source of these biophotons is the DNA emission. But well, with the way of soliton waves, it's a difficult theory to understand, but still, well, maybe, who knows, maybe it's DNA, but there are other theories, etc., that is not the topic of this lecture to go in depth there. But still, we don't know exactly the source of this emission, but we have already measured it. So humankind is aware that we are, ta-da, light beings. We emit light, but well, unfortunately not too much. So we have passed all the hardware emissions that are known. Well, again, of course, the ones, the chemical and the radioactive, etc., not so interesting to talk about. So we have discussed all the kind of hardware emissions, and now we're coming to software emissions. So there is an operating system working, and of course, people talk about some kind of mental field or psychic field or information field even that surrounds us. But the main question is, who is the carrier? Well, even in hardware level, it's not so simple because, for example, for electric field, we know the electrons, right? The carriers of the electricity. The positively charged, the positrons and electrons, etc. But in terms of magnetic field, for example, there is no magnetron particle or something like that. So, but still magnetic field exists and we work with it. So everyone has a magnet on the refrigerator in the house, right? So it works, even though we modern science doesn't know exactly how it works, and there are still lots of interesting questions in this field, like what is the zero magnetic field. But in this sphere of software emissions, our operating system, the mental emissions, still there are more questions than answers. We cannot tell exactly, are there any special carriers? Because about the activity of the brain, we know those alpha, beta, delta, or rhythms of the brain that are electromagnetic and that can be measured with the modern tools and modern technologies. Whilst psychic field, what is transferring it, and what is the physics of this? We don't know. We don't know, and well, that's an interest. That's what makes our life interesting, specifically researchers' life. But okay, of course, information field exists. That's not a question, because if there is some emission, it means that this emission can transfer information. Of course, as long as we emit a lot of things from ourselves, it means we have a lot of information being emitted from us. It's just a question of extracting this information from the field that we have. So, and the question about measurements is that many of the things that we have talked about, of different emissions that our body possess, unfortunately, many of them we cannot measure, just because the body itself absorbs them inside and doesn't let outside. So it means that not all of them can be measured, and especially when we talk about those mental level things and software emissions, well, no tools to measure them yet. Well, at least accepted by the modern science. And the question is that, do you really think that your body is so extrovert that is ready to share its information about its inner state and its inner life with everyone outside? Well, from my perspective and from my practice, our body is not ready to share, and it's not so happy to share its secrets. So in order to get those secrets and to understand what's really going on, you have to ask questions. You have to ask specific questions. So whenever you want to find some specific information, you have to dig in the specific direction. And sometimes you have to provoke some reactions of the body in order to get some reaction. So it means that in some cases you need to do the indirect measurements. So we need to stimulate the body in order to see the reaction. Because without stimulation, you don't see anything. It's just white noise. So these indirect influences that also happens in us. So different types of effects that and physical chemical phenomena that are happening inside of our body allows us to study even those things that are buried inside, deep inside of our bodies. So it means that, for example, just looking at this crystal of water, it reminds me about water crystals and Masaru Emoto, who was telling that our thoughts are affecting the water. Not only the internal water, but also a cup with the water that can be standing on the surface of your table. So it means that there is some way of transferring this information of your thoughts, maybe through the way those electromagnetic waves, maybe there are some other means of transport, who knows? But these things can be encrypted and transferred to the water. And what's interesting, water is able to detect these kind of messages and read them and write them on itself and store for some amount of time. So, for example, the influence of the mental activity, for example, these thoughts or intentions can be detected indirectly by doing such experiments like Masaru Emoto was doing, like many other scientists repeating after him, and he has done a great work of popularizing this topic, you know, and understanding that we are made of water, and water is everywhere around us on this planet. It's in the air, it's in the stone, it's in the wood, it's everywhere. So it means that if some mechanisms or some phenomena are working with external water, it means they will work with us because we are also made of water. So in some cases, in order to understand what's going on with the body in terms of those different emissions, like biofields that we have, but we cannot detect outside, we have to do some indirect measurements. We have to sometimes stimulate the body to show us, to tell us the truth. Because by default, our body doesn't want to share. And actually, this is one of the principles that we are teaching on our Biowell classes, is about how do you do effect. Because if you remember the levels of human body and the problems evolution there, starting from the author and its mindset and coming to symptoms and pathology, we understand that the top priority is the mindset. It controls everything. So if you do not change the mindset, all the problems below will be returning back and back again to the person if you work only on the hardware level. Because the reason of these problems appearing in the hardware level are coming from the software level, from the mindset. So how do you do effect is about this, is that if you ask a person, how do you do, the general answer usually will be, I'm fine, thank you. And that's just automatic answer. And if your mind works like that, whenever you ask the question, how do you do, and your mind answers, I'm fine, thank you. What do you think will your body answer if you ask the body a question, how do you do? Just by measuring something, without provoking, without stimulation, just by trying to scan what's going on. in most of the cases, if you are measuring subtle things, subtle emissions from the body, the answer will be, I'm fine, thank you, because by default, your body doesn't want to share all the problems that are inside. Same as your mind doesn't want to share all the problems whenever you're getting a question, how do you do? So, for example, in BioWell practice, we recommend not to do only the initial measurements of the person who is passing the uh, analysis with the BioWell, but we highly recommend to do some stress test, some stimulation. So people do some physical exercises in order to stimulate the body to show the reactions. And by doing the scans after these physical exercises, we can see much more information. There are lots of cases, and I'm sure Dr. Natara will show these kind of cases during his classes and lessons. And he will prove that your body, by default, is not ready to share. It's only when it's really bad, the overall state, that the body will share everything, like, because the protective measures are already not working properly. Let's continue. So, what can be the reasons of our problems in life with our health, as long as most of you attending these classes are therapists? So, hardware level problems, the emissions will tell. You just need to measure them or stimulate the hardware, the organ or system, to give you the exact information. It's doable. Lots of means, lots of technologies, unfortunately, lots of fake ones, but still lots of technologies based on specific physical phenomena that can tell you about what's going on the hardware level. Then software level, our mindset, well, thanks to psychologists, hypnotherapists, they can pass a session and help you to reveal the problems on this level too, and then even tell you what to do in order to correct the software level. So again, doable. There are lots of technologies like emotional freedom technique or any other psychological treatment or hypnotherapy treatment whatsoever. Many approaches, very many methods. Then there is external hardware emissions. Of course, different objects from in the external world also emit different types of emissions that can be absorbed by our bodies too. So it means they will be somehow either helping us, like magnetic field of the Earth, or either they can be damaging us, like ultraviolet light from the sun when it's too much of it. So in this case, the protective measures can help. So you have to be aware that these external emissions also exist, and this will be the next topic that we will talk about. What kind of emissions we meet more frequently in life, and what can be done potentially. Then external software. Well, this is the influence of I don't know, ectoplasma, different entities, or just other people, that are imposing their life view on you, and then spoiling your life, So again, protective measures can be taken. You have to be careful with whom you communicate, with whom you work, etc., etc. Let's talk about physics again. External emissions. We understand that there are lots of technologies that are surrounding us nowadays And there are lots of rumors about some technologies that will kill us all, etc. But let's look into the physics, okay, before making some conclusions. So we are all aware about this mobile network, like 2G, 3, 4G, and now 5G. So let's look at the frequencies and wavelengths. For example, for 3G and 4G, it's from 0.8 to 2.6 gigahertz. Wavelength is 37.5 to 11.5 centimeters. So it's quite big waves, and we are all used to live with them already. Now there are lots of rumors about mobile network of the 5th generation. Depending on the country, companies are using different band. In some countries, the band can almost coincide with the Wi-Fi, so it will be not higher than 5 gigahertz. But some countries experiment with higher frequencies. They go up to 100 gigahertz. So in some countries, they do tests of 70 gigahertz and even 90 gigahertz equivalent. So let's look into the sizes of the waves. These are, if it's 5 gigahertz, it's 6 centimeters. If it goes up to 100 gigahertz, it's 3 millimeters. Well, 3 millimeters is quite small wave, so it's already closer to the size of the our cells in the body, etc. So we have to be careful, and we will talk about the resonance effect a little bit later. So Bluetooth, 2.4, 2.5 gigahertz. The wavelength is 12.5, 12 centimeters. Wi-Fi, 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. Again, 6, 12 centimeters. Big waves, pretty big. The EMF in the socket in the house, 50 hertz, it's 6,000 kilometers wavelength. So like super big, right? Well, other external emissions like sun magnetic storms, right? We all know that magnetic storms affect especially elder people and people with blood system disorders, or with heart disorders, or with brain disorders, or with the joints disorders. They are aching during these magnetic storms. But what's interesting, the sun magnetic storm, the most powerful ones, leads to a change of the magnetic field to 0.5 microtesla, whilst the natural magnetic field of the Earth is 50 microtesla. So it means that 0.5 microtesla is 1%. And it's maximum. Usually the magnetic storms are not so strong. Usually they're weaker, like 0.2, 0.3 maximum microtesla. So it means that the influence of the magnetic storm, if we look into just overall magnetic field, it should be negligible, right? We shouldn't sense it. Well, if we speak generally, like, oh, it's below 1%, it's nothing. But people sense it. They really sense it, and they have ache, they have pain, and the magnetic field changes less than 1%. Interesting thing to think about. Well, again, sun radioactivity, the ultraviolet light through those ozone holes in our atmosphere that burn our skin and can lead to even cancer, etc. So we have to be just careful about radioactivity, right? That's it. Well, external emissions like acoustics, like these ultrasound or infrasound, that are being emitted by different equipment or by different transport. Yep, they are also affecting us, even though you can be unconscious about some infrasounds. Your body can sense many of them that you are not aware of. You know, the ones that you do not hear, but the body still absorbs them. And it means that they can influence you without you knowing. Well, I have also done some experiments in this field of influence of the infrasound on the learning process of the students or the work of the operators. And yeah, infrasound, even though that people do not hear it, it really affects our thinking abilities, first of all, the ability to concentrate and work. So we have to be careful, and we have to do some preventive steps, you know, like as we have talked, protective measures. So how do these things affect us? So if we talk about electromagnetic waves, for example, the most popular ones, we are surrounded by electricity nowadays. One of the ways that these electromagnetic fields are affecting us is the heating effect. So, and there are lots of international standards and norms for smartphones that it shouldn't heat your brain or the ear and the area around your ear while you are talking more than this amount, just by transferring the heat, the energy. But this is not the only way the emission can affect us. There is also an information transfer distortion effect. It means that if, for example, your cells communicate with each other and transfer some signals in a specific range of electromagnetic waves, and there is an external emission coming to you in the same range, it will interfere with the internal communication of your cells. For example, we just talk about cells. So it means that this information transfer between the organs or systems or cells can be distorted by these external emissions. If without any heating, if we are not talking about heating, it's just about distorting, bringing more chaos into the messages. So I will try to help you to visualize this process. So, for example, instead of like drawing these waves with highs and lows, sinusoidal wave, well, let's imagine that ideal wave looks like this. It's actually like that. 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. Can any information be transferred by this means? No, only frequency and wavelength, nothing else. The rest is useless because it's only 0, 1. It means there's no information encoded in it because it's constantly repeating the same. So in order to encode something, you have to use like Morse. 1100, 11001. There should be some specific combinations of ones and zeros in order to transfer the information. So this kind of visualization for you is a coded wave. So it means there is some information. Oh, we all know such pictures nowadays, QR codes, right? You can encrypt the hyperlink, the link to some website in the internet, right? So same, by combining these zeros and ones, you can code information in it. It's same wave with the same wavelength, with the same frequency, simply it is changing in time. 0, 0 1 1 1 0 0. Okay, so there is a modulation. So when the wave is modulated, it means there is information being transferred. But let's imagine that in this coded wave that is just very basically visualized like that, there is some external signal of the same frequency coming, or the frequency is close. It can be, you know, 2 times like half wave or double wave, but still it will affect the code that is encrypted into this information, and it will get distorted. And now the information is lost. You cannot read it anymore because of this external influence without any hitting. We didn't hit anything. We just spoiled the information transfer by some external wave that is resonant to the existing wave in, for example, our body. So what will affect? Only those things that have resonance. So if there are processes in our bodies, as we have discussed earlier, you remember we were remembering those gigahertz. There are processes in our bodies that are being fulfilled in these frequencies. And if there are emissions externally coming to us with the same wavelength, with the same frequency, even though they are very, very weak, it doesn't matter. They can spoil the information transfer. So it means the intercommunication of the systems in the body between the cells, for example, the brain activity. If you take some specific ranges in which our brain waves are being emitted, those in hertz, then if you supply same external emission in the same wavelength, even if it will be super weak, it will interfere with the function of the brain without hitting it. No hitting effect will happen. So, but unfortunately, as we have talked earlier here, on this level, on the level of transfer, okay, metabolic activity, you can call it, to information transfer, intercellular communication, there are absolutely no norms and or standards. There are conferences being held worldwide about influences of weak and ultra weak phenomena. Lots of scientists are devoting lots of research stating that even these ultra weak influences, if they are resonant with some processes in the body, they affect these processes. And well, for me, it's pretty logical. It's, as I have explained, it's not about transfer of the heat, it's about corrupting the information transfer. So, but if there is no resonance or direct contact, nothing can affect you. Doesn't matter on hardware or software levels. So if there is nothing that oscillates in you in some range, it will not affect you because there will be no resonance happening between you and this emission. If nothing is oscillating in you with 100 terahertz, it means this 100 terahertz emission will pass through you without any interaction. Not bad. Same on the software level. Well, to visualize this, we can talk about the millimeter waves, which is talking about the theory that our cells are interacting between each other in millimeter wavelengths. And if we return back to this spectrum that we were talking about, the mobile network, the 5G, is coming close to the millimeter range. If we talk about 100 gigahertz, or if it will go further higher to in gigahertz, then it will go to millimeter range, even 1 millimeter or below millimeter range. And according to this theory of intercellular communication, it will start interfering directly with the intercellular communication, and it can lead to very harmful effects. But again, depending on how long you're being affected by these emissions, it can have a positive effect, a healing effect, or it can have a negative effect. Well, that's an interesting thing. And in my research, I was finding that when researchers and scientists were checking specific frequencies, for example, in ultrasound or infrasound that may affect the person, they have found that you just change, instead of 10 millimeters wavelength to 10.1 millimeter, one will have positive effect, the other one will have negative effect. Simply small shift in frequencies. Well, I have found very few sources of scientific information on this topic in 10 years ago in the library, and it's almost impossible to find this information on internet. That's what is interesting. You will not find this information. I think so. And because it's quite dangerous, you know, by knowing these specific frequencies that can be beneficial for human health and that can be harmful for human health, you can manipulate people by providing this emission to people, to the masses during different events, etc. So, well, it's really dangerous knowledge. Well, it's something that I have found some time ago, and I have, and what's interesting, I have even found the internet resources at 10, 20, 12 years ago on this topic, one resource in the whole internet in Russian language. And couple of years later, it has disappeared. It's not possible to find it anymore. And it's almost impossible to find this information nowadays. So, well, but when these gigahertz get increased, we should be ready to these effects. Until we are higher than like centimeters or like, yeah, centimeters wavelength, from my perspective, it should not affect so much the human being, while the information transfer may still be affected. Well, that's why you have to be careful of not sleeping near Wi-Fi router or 5G generator, okay? Don't put your smartphone near your pillow, okay, etc. It's just some protective measures, as we have talked earlier. And about software protective measures, well, there's a very good story about Buddha when he was traveling through one of the villages, and there were several people who hated his system and his theory and his teaching. They came to his path and were walking together with him and shouting at him, cursing him with many bad words. But Buddha was just continuing walking, just listening like it was music, and without any reaction. And after some time, people started questioning if he really understands what they're talking. And one of them of these peasants has come to him and asked, "Do you understand that we are cursing you? We hate you, etc." And Buddha said, like, yeah, I do clearly understand what you're talking about. And you see that your words are just like offerings. You are offering me your words, and you know, I'm not interested in them. I don't like them. So I don't want to take them. I'm returning them back to you. So it means there is no resonance between those words and his inner world. So there is no interaction. These words come and go and dissipate in space-time continuum. And it means that this is one of the protective measures. Don't pay too much attention to all this bullshit that is happening around you. Communicate with only positively thinking people, and limit the communication with the pessimistic and negatively thinking people. So we have talked about all different types of emissions and fields that human body emits and can interact with. And well, according to my timeline, it's enough. The final thing I want to tell to you is that whenever you do some therapy or diagnose the problem, you have to find the source. Based on the topics that we have talked about today, you know where to look for, the hardware level or the software level. And it may help you to find a specific method that will help you to diagnose this specific problem, if it's software or it's hardware. And well, remember that if you take into consideration only 4 factors from 5, you may miss, or you may be misinterpreting the situation. So whenever you are diagnosing a person or analyzing the state of a patient, well, as we have talked about 5 spheres of lifestyle that are affecting mostly our energy state of the body: the mindset, the nutrition, the physical activity, external environment, and the regime of the day, sleeping regime mostly. So if you forget about one of them, most people, most doctors forget about the factor of external emissions. Very common mistake. They try to find the problem inside the body, and they try to heal the person, prescribe different medication, different therapies, but problem stays there and it doesn't want to leave, or it leaves but then returns back. And it's only because doctor didn't think about environment in which the person sleeps, lives, and works. And just by missing only one factor, all the work can become senseless. So, well, it's just my humble recommendation. Try to take all these 5 factors into consideration whenever you are working with a person. I hope my lecture was useful. Well, if you have some questions and remarks, I'm open to them, and to any feedback. You remember my contact details in Telegram and email. Boa sorte!